Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:07. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in here this Friday morning. Busy one ahead of us. Coming up at 6:35, Representative Andy Harris of Maryland. At 7:05, Rich Anderson, Virginia Republican Chairman. And then at 7:35, Glenn Youngkin, Virginia Governor. Both those fine gentlemen. We'll talk about early voting in Virginia. And then at 8:05, we'll get our man on the scene, Vince Colonnese, who will be on the ground at a Fairfax County early voting location. That's all coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. We made it.
How the mighty have fallen. You know, that Oprah Winfrey, she had quite a career going, right? She had her TV shows, she had her movies, she had her magazine, she had her book club, she had her streaming.
Most favorite things list.
All of that stuff. And now she's reduced to starring in an infomercial.
Oh, no.
This is sad. Yesterday, she did an infomercial for the Kamala Harris for President campaign. It really was. I mean, the studio audience were, trained campaign individuals, and they had all these screens up there that is supposed to represent just regular people from all around the country, but actually they were all part of these little campaign groups. You know, white guys for Kamala and hamburger lovers for Kamala, and, all of these things. So they were all pre-screened and planned as well. And there's a lot to get to here, but I'm gonna, if you forgive me, I would like your permission, ladies and gentlemen, to just spend. I promise I'm not. I want to interrupt this, but and interject. And I know Patrice is going to be just jumping out of her chair, but we need to hear this in its entirety, and then we'll go back and break it down because it does deserve some examination.
Let's do it.
But here is almost 2 minutes of Kamala Harris at her very, very best.
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being. Because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, freedom to be safe from gun violence, freedom to have access to the ballot box, freedom to be who you are and just be, to love who you love openly and with pride, freedom to just be. And that's who we are. We believe in all that. And so this is a moment where we stand knowing what we are fighting for. We're not fighting against. It's what we're fighting for.
You know, Patrice, in her mind, as she's doing this, she's thinking to herself, I'm nailing this, I'm nailing this, I'm nailing this. Shut up. But
yes,
let's you know what, and at any moment when you want to just jump in, you let me know and I'll pause it because this deserves a bit of a fisking, I think.
We love our country.
Do we? Well, hold on. Didn't she just bail out criminals who were burning down buildings because they said our country was systemically racism? That means racism is built into our systems. Why, in fact, would you say you love a country that is systemically racist?
Racist from our founding, irredeemably racist.
That's right.
That is what we were told in 2020 and earlier.
So here, I couldn't even let her get a second in without challenging this assertion.
I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country.
Well, technically, everybody's there right now because I think they paid to be there, or
that's probably true.
Or they got paid to be there, but that's all right.
we take pride in the privilege of being American.
Pride in the privilege.
Why not just say we're proud to be Americans?
No, it's proud to.
Why do we have to
privilege.
inject privilege as though there's, actually it's not privilege, it's a blessing.
This is why we call it word salad, because the more words you throw out there, it makes it sound profound and intelligent, but really what she's doing is playing out the clock. She knows that the longer the answer is,
yeah.
right? It's like
people get lost along the way.
It's Miss Teen South Carolina, answering the questions, and she's
it's a
just
fourth grader who
filling
just grabs a dictionary and throws a bunch of adjectives into there to make the sentences in their paper sound longer.
And she has no idea where she's going with this, by the way.
No, she doesn't. You can tell.
And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us.
Now, she sat idly by for the last 3.5 years.
Thank you.
As her boss stood up there screaming at
we have
MAGA
heard about
fascists.
Larry, we have heard about the moments. This is the moment. This is the moment. We have heard since Joe Biden was running, and she was running 4 years ago, that was the moment. And every month we've heard that this is the moment. It's enough with the moments. Let's just get stuff done or get off the pot.
That's right. Do something. If this is the moment we come together, then what have you been doing for the last 3.5 years? Dividing us. So then you can step up and say, well, I'm here to bring us all together. Well, we would have been together if you haven't spent the last 3.5 years dividing
us.
Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions.
Is she saying that people in other countries don't have dreams and ambitions?
Well, then why are they coming to this country?
Thank you.
Why did people like my family come to this country? Yeah, we have dreams and ambitions. And but by the way, my family did it legally.
No.
We did it the right way.
No, Patrice, it's just an American thing. It's an American character. Those Swedes, it's so sad to be Swedish because you never have any dreams or aspirations. No, go ahead.
Well, you can have dreams and you can have ambitions, but if you are in an irredeemably racist, oppressive system that's stacked against you, it doesn't even matter. So you see how their arguments collapse on each other?
You know what my dream and aspiration is? My dream and aspiration is to buy a pound of ground beef for less than $7. It's a simple, humble dream.
That's right.
All right, we've got more of this. There's more that needs to be analyzed and broken apart, especially when she talks about those fundamental, foundational principles that our nation was built on. Because I don't know if you caught it, but apparently George Washington and John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and the founders, really they were fighting for abortion and trans pride.
Don't forget gun control.
We'll get to that in a moment. It's 6:15.
We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that.
We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. It's like she's just trying to remember what slogans are on those refrigerator magnets back at home.
If you remember, she usually said what can be unburdened from what has been.
That's right.
That must not be polling well, which is why she dropped that, because that is one of her long-time go-to slogans, which makes no sense. But
that's how we came into being, because the people before us understood.
Wait, the people before us, by the way, again, because I've read her endorsed 1619 project that she embraces with her ideology. The people before us were colonizers. They were white, racist, sexist men and property owners and slave owners. So now she's waxing poetic about the people who came before us. I'm sorry. Well, I'm glad to see she's not unburdened by the past.
That one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are, which includes freedom to make decisions about your own body, freedom.
Yeah, remember Federalist 69, I think it was, when James Madison wrote, the reason that we need to form this nation is so that we
to
can
kill babies.
do whatever we want with our body, which is my favorite euphemism for killing babies before they're born. Yeah. That's I love that she's talking about our founding and the things that we believe. And the first thing, honestly, let's face it, the only thing she and her party stand for at this point is abortion.
Well, they've co-opted the freedom language and twisted it just to apply to taking away your guns, and also murdering the babies in the womb.
Yeah, the guns are nice.
To be safe from gun violence.
She's hearkening back to our founding, where you have to fight to be sure that we're safe from gun violence. I'm sorry for putting it this way, but gun violence is what won us our freedom.
Thank you.
Thank you. It required a little bit of gun violence. Can we go take a visit down to Yorktown and see what happened in that final battle? It's just about 2 hours south of here, and it's amazing how much gun violence there was.
Oh, I mean, go up to Massachusetts. You could figure out where the Revolutionary War started, and it didn't start with sticks and knives or swords and bows and arrows.
John Adams took his stand at Independence Hall in Philadelphia and said, "Gentlemen, we must finally fight for our independence so we can be free of gun violence." That's what I remember it. It was right there.
Freedom to have access to the ballot box. Freedom to be who you are and just be. To love who you love openly and with pride.
Yeah, to be fair, it may have been Ben Franklin who drew the line on this and said, "No, honestly, guys, this is really all about, having gay sex, isn't it? Come on, I'll put my name right under John Hancock, if you know what I mean. I'll put my name right under his, as long as we include gay sex in this thing."
If you notice, she didn't go as far as and dressing the way you want to dress. So she didn't bring the trans community into this, because I think she realizes that with some of the constituencies that she's trying to get with voting rights, aka black folks, she doesn't want to go that bridge too far, because a lot of black folks are not on the trans bandwagon.
Au contraire, my Montserrat Maverick. I know the dog whistle language. Let's hear it again.
Access to the ballot box. Freedom to be who you are.
Be who you are. Just because you were born with boy parts, if you are a girl, then you should be free to be a girl.
That's fair. So I guess she's throwing it all in there.
Yeah. Oh, sure. These 2 minutes is absolutely everything is thrown in.
And by the way, this was her closer. This was Oprah said, "Okay, with the last few minutes, what is on your heart for the American people?"
Yes.
Instead of saying, "I'm going to bring down inflation," and we have great clips on how she doesn't have a plan, but I'm going to bring down inflation. I'm going to close the southern border. I'm going to make our cities safe again. This is what she pivots to, folks.
Yes.
This is what's on her heart: voting rights, abortion, trans and LGBTQ, and taking your guns. The 4 pillars of the Democratic platform.
Because that's what the founders fought for, don't you know? She was asked by one of the little video couples watching, "What is your plan to lower prices?" Remember, that's the question.
We really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambition.
Who's being denied the right to have aspirations and dreams? What does that even mean?
She said later, Americans are the most optimistic people. We dream. We dream.
Right. No, you don't have the right to dream, apparently. Just lower the cost of eggs, lady. It's a simple question.
And ambitions for your family. And working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been.
Well, much recently, because 3 years ago it wasn't like this.
No.
And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's the question. That was the question.
The question is, how are you going to reduce the cost of living? And her answer is, I'm going to bring down the cost of living.
That is like, define the word is, and then all you say is.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what the definition of the world is. But sure, you're right. That's Kamala Harris yesterday with Oprah, and she's getting rave reviews. Meryl Streep was there after all, and Julia Roberts. It was fabulous. 6:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Time is 6:36 this Friday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll speak with Rich Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. And then at 7:35, Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia. They're both here to focus on early voting beginning today in the Commonwealth. At 8:05, our own Vince Colonnese will be on the ground at an early voting location in Fairfax. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka, two Marylanders here talking about Virginia, but that's all right. We play both sides of the river if necessary.
I mean, we're all family in the DMV.
Joining us right now is Maryland Congressman Andy Harris. He is the entirety of the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives for Maryland, but he's hoping to have some company soon. And, well, he's also the newly elected chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congratulations, Andy Harris.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Listen, early voting doesn't happen in Maryland for another month, but mail-in ballots, of course, are going. I'm seeing those darn drop boxes already popping up in my neighborhood. How's this election looking? I know you've got to be out there, and you've got to be hoping that Neil Parrott, at least in Maryland 6, probably the best chance you've got to have some company.
That's right. I think that's true. You know, he's running against someone who's a dyed-in-the-wool liberal who doesn't even live in the district. I think that he's got a good shot.
Great. And I got to ask you, because, you know, Larry Hogan, of course, would love to be a sort of white rhino there. You know, it's very hard to get a Republican senator from Maryland. How long has it been? Like 50 years, 60 years? He's running an interesting campaign, but as a Maryland Republican, I don't feel like he's made much of a case to get my vote. Can you make that case for him? Why should Republicans vote for Larry Hogan?
Well, look, the most important region by far is so that Chuck Schumer is definitely not the next majority leader in the U.S. Senate. We can't have Chuck Schumer. Larry, you know, pretty clearly is going to vote for a Republican majority leader. And again, look, he has an independent streak. Obviously, I mean, Joe Manchin endorsed him, but he will vote. He will not vote for Chuck Schumer to be majority leader.
Okay, all right.
So, Chairman Good, congratulations again. I mean, I think the Freedom Caucus has been such an important voice in reining in and holding back the ridiculous, reckless spending that has, frankly, driven inflation to 40-year highs. You know, under your leadership, how are you? What are your thinking in terms of the end of the year? I mean, we've got a potential plan for another stopgap measure to get us through at least the election season. But you know, how can we ensure that real spending bills are being passed and that there's some real fiscal responsibility and accountability for every taxpayer dollar?
Well, the most important thing we can do is to maximize our ability to avoid a huge Democrat-driven omnibus bill in December. I think it's pretty clear, you know, some stopgap measure will pass that probably gets us into December. But December's a totally different story, whereas, you know, a shutdown is probably not a good idea in, you know, 1 month before an election. 23 months before an election, that might be an entirely different story if that's what we need to control reckless spending and to control our border. And we can't forget that. You know, almost every single Democrat voted to allow illegal immigrants to basically vote in U.S. elections. That's just ridiculous.
Does Speaker Johnson have your vote of support going into the next Congress at this point, or are you hoping to have a conversation with him? And because, listen, let's face it, the Freedom Caucus is going to be integral for Johnson or whomever else wants to hold that gavel. That's obviously true. We have almost 36 members, so it's a sizable group. But I think he showed real leadership bringing that bill to the floor this week, the one that again would extend the continuing resolution into a potential Trump administration and include the SAVE Act, which of course would make sure that illegal immigrants can't vote in federal elections. And I think that showed real leadership to bring it to the floor, even though he knew he may not win that fight on the floor. That's what we have to show. We have to show the American people at least we're fighting for them. Because of the Democrats, we won't always win, but at least we're fighting.
When I think about the Democrats and just these spending battles, they've been really saying, oh, well, Republicans need us to come to the rescue. I don't think that's the case. We've seen it happen, but I don't think that's the case. And so hopefully going forward, if they get on board, that's fine. But if not, it is what it is, because I think we need to rein in that reckless spending that we've been seeing. For a potential, the new Congress next year, what would be some of your ideas going forward of what is some of kind of the day one priorities you'd want to tackle?
Well, again, we're going to have another election for the Freedom Caucus chair after the November elections. We have to wait until the dust settles. Let's see what happens. But if the situation is where I'm, reelected to the chairmanship, spending is the number one priority, no question about it. Close behind is we have to clean up this immigration mess. Look, I'm with President Trump. You got to start deporting the millions of people who you let into this country illegally. A majority of Americans agree with that. I agree with that. We have to reverse what has happened over the past 4 years. And then we have to go on and we have to make sure that we make sure that the government is not interfering with your liberties and freedoms. They're not doing, they're not sending out DOJ SWAT teams to your house because, you protested at a Planned Parenthood, things like that.
We're speaking with Andy Harris, who's now not just Congressman from Maryland, but he just got elected to fill the vacant slot for the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, I know it's not as sexy a conversation, but a lot of people look at the last several years of continuing resolution after continuing resolution, omnibus bill after omnibus bill, and they see that that's the real root of the problem. I remember John Boehner running in 2010, hoping the Republicans could get the majority back, promising to go back to regular order, promising to go through the real appropriations process that Congress is supposed to go through and not have these last-minute 4 people in a room negotiating trillions of dollars of omnibus packages. Is it realistic to go back there? Can we begin that process the day after the election and actually move to real regular order on our budget and appropriations?
Well, on the House side, we were way over halfway there. I mean, we appropriated and got past the floor way over 70% of the total budget. But we looked over on the other side of the Capitol, and the Senate did nothing on the floor. So at some point you decide that, hey, let's move on to other important business. Chuck Schumer's deciding that he wants to cook up appropriations bills in some smoke-filled back room and make all the deals. I think the most important thing we can do is we can go to a 2-year appropriations cycle for everything except the defense budget, because the defense budget needs to remain nimble. We have stops and starts that are important, but we should consider going to a 2-year cycle for all the other parts of the federal government, which would free up a whole lot more time to have the appropriate discussions on these bills.
Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure, between now and Election Day.
Thank you.
It's 6:44.
Making sense of the news.
I know what you're thinking. Oh, Larry and Patrice, give me more Kamala and Oprah, please.
In terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been.
That's Kamala Harris answering the question.
My head hurts just trying to understand what she's saying.
More specifically, not answering the question, how are you going to bring prices down? She was asked about what she would do to strengthen the border security. Since she's the border czar.
What would be specific steps to strengthening the border?
But I love the fact that the questions all say specifics. Mm-hmm. Give me specifics.
So it's a wonderful and important question. My background was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state.
By the way, this is an administration who has tried to stop elected attorney generals of border states from being able to do anything about the border.
That's right.
They all say, exactly. You states have nothing to do with this. This is all the federal. How dare you? They've literally taken them to the Supreme Court to stop them from trying to enforce their border.
Exactly. Look at Texas.
In Texas. Thank you. So for her to say, I was the attorney general of a border state. Okay, what'd you do, though? And she won't tell you.
Thank you.
Because she did nothing. Her message is, you want the border secure? We'll secure it as well as we did in California, which is Not at all.
So this is not a theoretical issue for me. This is something I've actually worked on. Mm-hmm. I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
The question is, what will you do specifically to secure the border?
For the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I take very seriously the importance of having a secure border and ensuring the safety of the American people.
Spoiler alert, she never answered the question.
Exactly.
Ever. She was asked about guns, though, because famously she wanted to confiscate guns. She wants an assault weapons ban, and she wanted what she called a mandatory buyback. Well, I love that, a mandatory buyback. It's not confiscation. No, we're just buying it back. Well, what if I don't want to sell it? It's mandatory. You must give it to Okay.
You've got to turn it over.
So here's what she had to say.
I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that. But my staff will deal with that later.
Yeah, that's why she loses staff. If
Honestly,
someone breaks
that was the best answer, Larry.
If someone breaks into my house, they're getting shot, she said.
That was the best answer I've ever heard her give. I mean, it is actual authentic, and I would agree with that.
Well,
I would actually agree with it.
Except that it's a lie, and her policies don't. I'm sorry. If you are a gun owner in California and someone breaks into your house and you just shoot them, you think you're not gonna get prosecuted? You
will
think
if you do that in D.C., where her current residence is located,
absolutely.
She would. I wish she would say, and I would love to ensure that law-abiding gun owners like myself have that protection if in case something were to happen, they would not be prosecuted. But
hell
she didn't
no.
take that step.
In fact, she has decried stand your ground laws in other states as being unconstitutional and systemically racist, too. This whole idea that, I mean, I hear you. You're right. It sounded less scripted than anything else she said, except for the fact that it's a complete and total lie. By the way, if somebody breaks into my house, they're getting shot. But you better make sure you only use the kind of gun that Kamala Harris decides you're allowed to own. If you happen to like an AR-15 because it's lighter and easier to handle, as many women, in fact, the majority of AR-15 owners that are enthusiasts are women, because it's lighter and it's easier to get off many rounds. If you're using an AR-15 in your home to protect yourself, as Kamala Harris claims she wants to protect herself, no. You're not allowed to use that gun because Kamala Harris has decided you can't have it. It's 6:53.
Making sense of your world.
There are a lot of things